Good morning, good afternoon, or good night, wherever you are tuning in from. This is BS Buddies podcast. Finally back. It's been 2 or 3 weeks since we last recorded. I'm in my new house, finally, which we'll get into a little bit here.
I'm still in my regular house, just in case you were wondering. I did not move.
This will probably be one of the first times where we record and post on the same day. So as soon as we're done with this, I'm gonna quick edit it, post it up. So sorry for the lateness, but we'll explain why everything is so late. If my cat would shut up. We have a sliding barn door, and when I'm in here, he likes to just paw underneath it and slam it constantly to try and get it open.
He's like, I must see how this works, Father. I must know.
But Ian, how are you doing?
Oh God, right now I'm actually very sore. I know you're gonna hate this, Joe. It's very stereotypical for our welcome back video, but it's been cold and snowy. I'm talking about the weather, and just working in this has just left me I feel like I've been used as a punching bag. You remember that scene? What was it, Captain America or something, where he's
Nope.
punching the punching bags and he's slugging. He hits one and it goes flying across the room, and then he just grabs another one, hooks it up. That's I feel like one of his used punching bags lying across the room, just limp and all sad in the corner. Just bleh. It's been an absolute. I don't want to say an absolute train wreck. It's been a soft train wreck. It's not like a big multi-car pileup, but it's more like the train just kind of they just fell off the tracks. You know what I mean?
I'm kind of feeling the same way. I'll give a summary of the last couple weeks first, and then Ian will. This is basically why we haven't posted. Which last week I just wanted to get settled into the house and get internet set up, which I will get into. And yeah, so let's back it up 2 weeks. I think we recorded on the last Monday of January just to prep for being gone. And I was supposed to close on the house at 9 a.m. on the 30th of January. So I'm like, sweet. I got my cousin coming down. Debbie's family is coming down, and they're going to help move us for 4 days. Took Thursday, Friday off of work just so I had plenty of time to clean the old place and move into the new. And then it gets to Wednesday, and I'm driving home from work. I get a call from the realtor, and he's like, hey, the loan still hasn't gone through yet. We might have to push it back to 4 p.m. on Thursday. Does that work? I'm like, yeah, I guess. I want to get moved into my new house ASAP because I just told the apartment, we're moving out in a week. And
I don't have a choice here. I gotta be gone.
And then about an hour and a half later, the lender calls me and he's like, hey, just so you know, your loan, or I can't remember exactly what it was. It went through the underwriter, and then the underwriter sent it off to the government office because it's a government loan. And he's like, yeah, right now it's in a queue, and with the change in administration, it's everything's backed up right now. He's like, I don't think you're going to be able to close tomorrow on the Thursday, but hopefully by Friday you'll be able to. I'm like, I'm super stressed. I'm like, I told the apartment we'd be out on the 7th, and we're not closed yet. So, I mean, did not sleep well that night. And this is a real funny part. Debbie and I were cleaning up the place and packing Thursday morning. And Debbie's like, I just really want to close on our house today. And it was 10 a.m. So I'm like, yeah, but people got to get get their ass in gear if we want to close today.
It's
Two,
government bureaucracy. That's why it's slow.
2 seconds later, legit 2 seconds later, lender calls. Yep, you're good. You can close today. I'm like, oh my goodness.
Took everything you had not to scream into the phone. It's a time.
No, I held back on laughing hysterically at the timing.
Oh man. Sometimes the universe just gotta test you. It's like, let's bring him right down to the wire. Let's see how far we can push him before he breaks. Oh, he didn't break. All right, here you go. You can have your house now. Sure, why not? Go for it.
That's pretty much
Yourself
been
up.
this whole process. Like just things working out at the last possible minute. That day of closing, my cousin was coming down, so we took a trip to the new place and like grab the keys, move in some stuff, and then go back to the apartment to sleep. And then we they made a few trips. I had to drive to Minnesota that day, so that was fun. Got to spend 5 hours in the car after spending 3 hour or an hour and a half in the car to move stuff and then go back. And then uh, Debbie's family came with an enclosed trailer, and we got all the big stuff in there and moved that. And then they left after because we didn't really need them anymore. It's like, yeah, you could bring your trailer, but we'll fill it like 5% full. So
Yeah, it's kind of a moot point at that time.
we had my cousin's truck, my car, Debbie's car. So it's like, just a couple more trips, and then turning in the apartment on, which was last Friday. So it's like, we got a week to just drive by, grab stuff. I think we did like 2 more trips, just cleaning and packing, just miscellaneous stuff. And then last weekend got to hang out around the house, and that was really nice. But before that, to make it super nice, last Tuesday I called internet company Brightspeed, and you know it's an issue if I say your name. Uh, called them, and they're like, and they offer like fiber optic internet in some areas. I'm like, okay, sweet. So I called, and the guy's like, yeah, we only have DSL internet, which in the moment I didn't know what that was until like look it up later. But I'm like, I need internet now, so yeah, whatever. He's like, okay, router should be there Friday, and you can hook it up yourself. I'm like, okay. Last Friday, I spent three hours on the phone. It was two with them, and then just it was such a mess. I get home like at 12:30, and we don't have a router yet. I'm like, okay, I'll wait an hour, and still don't have it. So I call, and it was like a 35-minute phone conversation to say we don't have our router and we need internet today because Debbie's in college. She's had the first 2 weeks of this semester not having internet. She has stuff she needs to get done tomorrow. And it didn't seem like they really cared. They're like, yeah, it's like lost router. We'll send you a new one. Should be here next week sometime. I'm like, I can't do next week. I need it now.
Can I
So
drive somewhere and pick it up? They make it. I just like to say as a side note, they make it like extremely ridiculous. Like, granted, I know internet has come leaps and bounds, but it's somehow it feels like back in the day it was easier because when everyone was trying to get internet, it was like, oh, you want internet? Oh yeah, we'll give you internet. We'll have a guy out there in like a half hour. Can you do that? And now it's like you call and you're like, hey, I need a router and some equipment to pick up, and they're like, well, the closest store is like an hour and a half from you, and if you can drive there, that'd be great, but there's no guarantee you'll even get in. And then it's like, then you get there, and the people behind the counter are like, oh, you were coming here for that? Like, yes, did you not get the phone call? Where's the communication breakdown happening? It just feels like they make it so frustrating to just get internet set up. at all anymore.
Legit 4 blocks down from us, like there are multiple bright speed vehicles. So you'd think like, hey, can we just get a tech out here? And it's like, no, that's not my area. It's like, are you kidding me? So after I talked about this angrily with Debbie, we call again like 15 minutes later because we have our own router and modem. So we were trying to set that up. And 45 minutes into this conversation of this not working, so I'm over an hour into these phone calls, get a knock on the door. It was the neighbor. He's like, hey, I think this is yours. And it was the modem. It gets better. I was on hold. I had to wait 5 minutes until the lady came back on so I could say, hey, we got our modem. And then
Here.
in this house we have an old style phone. Like we looked up a date, not on the phone, but like of the phone style, and it's like a phone from like 1927, just drilled into the wall. It's super cool. Doesn't work, but I just like it for aesthetic. As I'm on the phone, sorry, go ahead.
I was just gonna say you could scream into it really loud and pretend that you're talking to somebody on the other end. Hello.
Since it's DSL, I found out I needed a phone hookup, and that's where the phone hookup was, behind the old style phone. So I'm like, okay, plug it in, troubleshoot it. Doesn't work. Our the DSL line is cut or something. And she's like, "Oh, we could send a tech out there like next week, and we'll have to charge you a minimum of $100." I'm like, I'm not doing that. And I told her straight up, this was an hour 20 minutes into this phone call. I'm like, I'm so done with this. I never am like rude in phone calls, whoever it is, but I told her I straight up want to look for a different option. She's like, oh, don't do that. And I said, I'll call you guys back if I decide otherwise. But hang up the phone. I call Verizon because they offer home internet. And I went on the phone and I'm like, hey, I have questions about the home internet. And they're like, let me transfer you. I say the same thing to the next guy and he's like, let me transfer you. And I straight up say, no, I'm done being transferred around. And just hung up. Debbie gets on the phone, and I think she got the same guy who I hung up on. But a 20-minute phone call later, she's like, yeah, you can pick it up in Eau Claire, like right now. And it's like, it's sweet, okay. And we can have internet tonight? Yeah. So we drive to Eau Claire, pick it up, and we just ask questions. It's wireless. It's a wireless system, which I've heard bad things about by like one person. So I'm like, I don't know if I can really do much on this.
We'll see. It's kind of an either or situation.
But we go in just to ask because we've never had this type, and we're like, yeah, how does it work? And the guy's like, yeah, you plug it into the wall just on an outlet, and then you type in the password that's on the bottom, and you're good. I'm like, what? That's it?
Whoa. Bingo.
He's
internet.
He's like, yeah. Oh, and since you guys came in and got our home internet, you get Netflix and HBO for free for a year. On top of that, we are going to send you a $200 Amazon gift card in the next couple months.
Whoa.
I'm like, are you guys... Am I being pranked right now? Because I was
what's happening?
Like, they were going to charge me $100 to install, and to get the new modem, they're like, oh, there's going to be a $200 charge on your account, but you just call us and we'll take that off. It's like, you guys are giving me money to get this internet.
What's happening right now? I feel like cameras are going to walk out. It's going to be you got pranked, son. No, yeah, man, take your internet and go. All right, quick, sweetie, start the car, warm it up. We gotta go before they change their mind.
That's
Somebody somewhere messed up.
that's pretty much it. And like plugged it in, waited for the light to do what it needed to do, and to add internet. Like it's a 5G Wi-Fi, and I'm like, okay, like Debbie's got her Wi-Fi, that's great. I don't know how it will work for gaming, so like I hooked hooked it up, Ethernet cable, and I got on a Discord call. Well, first I tried playing Rocket League, and that's like just because
Yeah.
that's a game I know and that's a game I like to play, and like yeah, I'll have a little bit of stuttering, but it's not it's not terrible. And then when one of my buddies is like, "Hey, download this free shooter. I think Delta Force is what it's called." He's like, "It's very similar to Battlefield." And I'm like, "Okay, let's see the download speed." And it's
Try it
almost
out.
like 300 megabytes a second. I'm like, "Wow, that's like
Holy crap.
comparable." It was like I think it peaked at like 287, which for those of you who don't know, that's like pretty
That's
damn fast.
that's amazing.
I'm like, okay. And before that, I was gonna test. We do Jackbox game night every week on my Discord, and I was gonna test that, but I was waiting for people to be ready to test it. So that's when I downloaded the game. I'm like, I think Jackbox will run just fine.
I think we'll be all right here.
But yeah, after that, it's still trying to get settled. We got pretty much everything unpacked. The big stressor right now, I'm gonna be honest, is we had to break our lease, so we really need someone to rent out our old place. Otherwise, we gotta pay on our place for 4 more months. I do have someone lined up that said they were going to, but I haven't heard an update yet. So I'm really hoping.
Fingers crossed, knock on wood. I'd throw a coin into the wishing well. I don't know how many other platitudes I can throw at this.
Rabbit foot.
Yeah, rabbit's foot, rub that. That's a weird motion. I'm gonna stop
Whatever.
that.
But I have heard from someone that there was some people were talking about the apartment like being available, and it sounds like it's generating interest. So hopefully, like that can be snatched up before I gotta pay on it, and then just getting our deposit back, making sure that we get some of it back. Just as long as we get like $2 back, I'll be good with. As long as I don't have to pay them anything, like we consider that a win. Like a big win is like
Breaking
I won't say the dollar amount, but like a huge win is getting X amount back, and then like if it's just like, hey, you don't get your deposit back, I'm like, I don't care.
I'm okay.
I don't
with
have
that.
to pay on the place. We're good.
So you've been through a lot in the past 2 weeks then.
Yeah, it's definitely been like one of the most stressful times I've ever had in my life. Just the past month and a half, just closing on the house. I've probably had 50 to 75 phone calls within that time frame. There were days where I had like, granted, a couple of them in those days were like me calling someone and saying like, hey, I just need to vent for a bit. But there were some days I was having like 12 phone calls a day.
Oh god.
Because it's like, call the bank, call the lender. Lender, it didn't get sent to the lender. Call the bank, call the lender, make sure it went through. Call my mom to make sure, like, because she was helping me like just figure this out. Call my dad because he's helping me figure this out.
Call the bar, make sure they're open. Can I get there? Can you have a drink waiting for me? All right, thanks. Call the bank again.
Call the bank 3 more times while I'm at the bar.
Yeah. call the bank while I'm stirring my drink and throwing it back. Oh man.
Call Debbie, tell her to join me because I'm stressed.
Tell her I'm gonna need a ride home in about a half hour because ain't no way I'm gonna drive.
I will say the nice thing about the town I live in, granted, like I probably won't go there too often, but like there's two bars that are like 5 blocks away, plus a library, plus the city office, which is very annoying. I will say that because they have the town siren there, and they're
Yep.
still old school where I'm guessing whenever there's a fire, they'll just let it go for like 5 minutes at 2 in the
Did they
morning.
do the whole first Wednesday of the month thing?
I don't know yet. It's been 2
Mm,
weeks.
mm. Did they do a 6 p.m. siren at
that
all?
Not that I've heard.
No.
No. It just
No
seems
6
like
p.m. siren.
whenever there I'm guessing whenever there's a fire. But they let that thing go. It's like 5 to 10 minutes every single time. Like I heard it last night.
Yeah, baby. Gotta let everybody in town know something's going down.
It's like we don't have phones or pagers to let the firemen know that something's going down.
Gotta let it ring wild, baby. You know, with after all them fires out in California, they're like, we need to be on the ball. We need to let this sucker rip so that like old man Harris down the street with his hearing aids from 1990 can hear this thing going. What? What's going on? A fire? Oh man.
Yeah, it's been interesting. Uh, just as a fun fact, I called Ian a couple weeks ago while we were doing this, and he looked up the town, and he's like, "Oh, you live like right off the same highway as you grew up in Minnesota. Not directly, but it's like very, very close, and it can
We
connect."
Yeah, well, we traced it. I remember that I was making funny. I was like, "Oh, hey, this town is just like the one where you grew up in. Hey, look it, it's even on the same highway number." And then I started following it along the maps, and sure enough, that same highway goes into Minnesota and then routes around the Twin Cities through a lot of different junctions and then heads up north, and it connects to the same highway. So I was like, this is hilarious. I was like, Joe, you moved all the way to Wisconsin just to move right back to Minnesota. Little piece of home right there.
Granted, I think if I took that road, it'd add like an hour and a half to going to my parents, but
But it'd be a direct route. It would be a direct route.
direct route.
Never mind the 15 junctions and exchanges you have to go through to turn off and get on the same highway. It's a direct route.
Anyways, Ian, how was your couple weeks?
Well, it started off with me thinking that, I was like, okay, we're gonna have like a nice little break from recording, and I'm gonna have not necessarily that our recording takes up so much of our time, but I was like, without having to focus on that, I'm gonna be able to get all these little projects done, and then I'll just be able to relax, and it'll be great time. And Joe will get moved into his house, and then we'll talk about it, and it'll be a fantastic all time. And instead, what happened is things just went absolutely haywire into a huge shitstorm the second that we stopped. So to kick things off, we had my buddy's birthday was at the end of January, and I was really sitting there. I was like, God, I don't know what we want to do for his birthday. Like earlier in the month, I had talked to him about maybe going skiing at a popular place that is nearby where we live. But
I
then
think I know
the
the
temperature,
place. I
yep,
think I've
the
been to the
temperature
place.
several times, I'm sure. And well, then the temperature got warm. It got up to like 40, 30 some degrees, 40 some degrees, like the week preceding when we wanted to go. And it was just don't get me wrong. I know that the ski joints make their own snow. Like they have snow machines that they blow it over the hill. So that is plenty. But the problem is when it gets that warm, even the artificial snow melts and then it gets cold, and then it turns to ice. It's not nice fluffy powder for you to ride on. It's like solid pack ice. So that was just kind of like, do we really want to go through with that? You know, it's getting like cold and wet because it's warm. You don't want to have a jacket on, but then you fall down, you stand up, and you're soaked. So then it was kind of like, okay, so what can we what can we do for his birthday that he will enjoy? Well, then I was scrolling through Facebook and I saw an ad come up and it was like, hey, Monster Jam this weekend up at the Fargo Dome. And I was like, perfect. I haven't been to Monster Jam since I was like a young lad, since I was a young man, and I loved Monster Jam. Like, call me cliche, a stereotypical guy, but big truck go loud and fast. Yeah, I want to see him jump a car. Like, I was like, I was like, perfect, Monster Jam. So I just real quick, I looked up the tickets, and they were fairly cheap. It was like $28 a seat for where we were. We were
Not
up a
bad.
little bit higher,
I mean,
but
they're big trucks.
they
You could
are.
see
It's
them.
it's the Fargo Dome Stadium isn't like a massive stadium, so even if you're up in like quote unquote the nosebleeds, it's still really not that far away. Like, the, yeah, like you said, they're big trucks. You're gonna see them no matter where you're sitting. I don't got to be right down at like state like ground level. Which to be fair, when we were there, I was making a joke because they have all the lower ring section of seats like right next to the ground. They have all those are tarped off and you can't sit in them. And I was like, I want to know how much you could maybe pay to go sit down in like the danger zone. Like I want to see when trucks go out of the way. Yeah, get just like a picture of like Gravedigger like 6 feet away from you. It's so realistic and just
I will.
um
I will say I've been to Monster Jam once at U.S. Bank Stadium in the cities. Woke up the next day and got to experience what vertigo is like. Please wear some hearing protection there. That
oh oh
that
yeah,
really messed
those
me up.
those engines are loud, but it's God, it's so cool. So fun fact, two side fun facts actually for you. So while we were sitting there, they were actually running through like some of the facts about the truck. Like they put it up on the billboard during like the little intermission time. So those things are like V12 engines. They put out 1,500 horsepower, and the top speed that a monster truck has been recorded at. Granted, they don't often hit this speed, but the top speed that one has been recorded at has been 100 miles an hour. And that doesn't sound like much until you remember that the tires on those things are like the tires come up to like my chin, if not my nose, and they're probably like 4 feet wide. And they have two shocks on each tire, and they said that each shock is loaded between 250 and 450 pounds of nitrogen over top hydraulic fluid for those things. And it was like, oh my God, can you imagine being in it? Like these things, I'm sure you've seen, when they hit the gas, there's so much torque that the whole truck just like sits on its haunches as it rolls forward. And I'm like, can you imagine being in one of these things going 100 miles an hour? Like, holy
That'd be
crap.
terrifying.
Yeah. And the other thing is that apparently the difference in the shows between like even just like Fargo Dome and US Bank Stadium is like a night and day difference because US Bank Stadium is bigger, so they can add like more jumps and more things for them to really get up to speed and really get ripping. So now that I've been back again after like almost a decade of not going, now I'm like, oh my, I need to go see more. And apparently the finals this year are being held in Salt Lake City, the Monster Jam finals. So that's I'm tempted. I'm really tempted. Like there are few things that I will willingly throw money at, and to watch Big Truck go zoom is absolutely one of them.
Maybe we
But
maybe we should see if there's one that's going on. I guess I don't know what their schedule is. If there's like if they go in US Bank this year still or if they go back to Fargo this
yeah,
year.
they go. It's always February 1st, and or I should say the first weekend in February for Fargo, and then it's the end of February for Bank Stadium. Because now I've been seeing, ever since I went, I've been seeing more ads on Facebook to go down to US Bank Stadium, which is I think like the 27th and 28th or something like that of this month. So they're definitely going down there. But yeah, it's awesome. They had my boy Had my boy Gravedigger there. That's my man. They also had a Scooby Doo truck. That was pretty cool to see. So that was a lot of fun. And uh, we went up there and watched the show and blah 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 blah. Here is where my ire starts. Okay, number one. Do you remember when I said the tickets were nice and cheap? Right, it was like $28 a seat. And as a birthday present, I was like, you know what? I'll buy the four of us tickets. Myself, my girlfriend, and then my buddy and his girlfriend will go watch the monster trucks. And of course, my buddy, he was like, oh well, I can reimburse you for my ticket. And I was like, it's a birthday gift, man. It'll be all right. Until I go through the website to get the darn tickets, and the stupid fees that they have on these websites. So 4 tickets base cost was like $108. I'm like, that's not bad at all. 4 tickets to go see monster trucks. It's pretty fantastic. And then I go through the thing. They have a service fee, which was like $11 and some change per ticket. A fee, which was like $3 per ticket. I don't know, a queue fee, and then the taxes on each ticket. And so by the time it got done, it was like $175. I'm like, how do the fees on your website equal more than 60% of the cost of the base tickets alone? Like, what a ripoff.
I could go into a big rant about seats, but that might just have to be a separate episode.
And so, yeah, so then when all was said and done, and I was telling my buddy about this, he was like, "Oh, come on, man, you got to let me pay back." And I was like, just reimburse me for the base cost of the seats, and I'll just eat the rest of it, and that'll be my gift to you, is us going to do that. So then we did, and then we got up to Fargo, and we met, we had lunch at the mall, and then it was like 12, quarter after 12, and the show started at 1 o'clock. And it was like, all right, let's run down to Fargo Dome. We can get our seats, get settled in. It'll be all cool. I don't know who these event planners are. I don't know if they'll ever even see this. Probably not. But if you see this, if you were an event planner for that, just just know that I have the most hatred in my heart for events that charge for parking cash only on the day of the event. Because
That's such a Fargo thing. That is
yeah.
such a Fargo thing.
So because we take the highway up, right? And we're like looking, we're like, oh yeah, look up the directions here. Yeah, we go up, turn there, bingo, bingo, bongo, right into the parking lot. We'll be fine. And we turn off the highway and we jump in with this line of cars that's like a mile long. It takes us not even like a mile. This is like 3 blocks, 4 blocks long. By the time we jumped in, it took 40 to 45 minutes for us to move the 3 blocks it took to get up into the thing. And the only reason we knew that it was because they were charging for parking is because our other buddy who came with us, he turned off on a different exit and he got there a little closer and he calls and he's like, "Hey, what am I supposed to do if I don't have cash for parking?" And we're like, what are you talking about? No, nothing ever mentioned cash for parking. He's like, yeah, you got to pay to park. It's $5 cash only. And I'm like, are you kidding me? You are taking, and keep in mind on the day that this happened, it was probably like 0 degrees, 10 below. Like it was a little crisp. It was a little chilly out there. And I was like, you are gonna make your Fargo Dome event people stand outside in 0 degrees, charging cash only for parking on the day of the event, and something that could have been included in the cost of the ticket. Like, what was all those fees for if not to pay for the parking? You can make your money on all the sales from the merchandise. Like I could have crushed bricks in my hand. I was so mad. I was like, this is the dumbest thing. You've got traffic backed up for miles because you're gonna have people pulling in, going, "Where do I park? We need cash for you to park." What do you mean you need cash for me to park? And then you get the line just backs up and it just takes forever. So by the time we got in there, the show had already been going for about like 10 minutes. We didn't miss much, but my anger was already spiked. My blood pressure was through the roof. I'm like, this is stupid. This is not the way things should be done. I should have my ticket in hand, and you should say, "Welcome, sir. Please park your vehicle and come on in." Like, if you're gonna charge me money, you might as well at least valet my car for me. Like, come on. It's not like parking's a big issue there either. It's a gigantic parking lot, you know what I mean? So it was just so stupid. It was so dumb. I was so fed up with it, but yeah, after going in and watching the trucks and everything, then we were all like, "Woohoo, yay, this is great." And we had a fun time. Hi everybody. How's it going out there? It's just me and you right now. Joe had to go take care of some stuff, so we're just sitting here chilling. How you guys doing? It's been ice cold. I've been dropping things. How'd you like that little rant about the monster trucks? There's many things in this world that make me exceptionally angry, and one of them, I'm a man of efficiency. All right? I'm a man of efficiency, and I like things to go smoothly. And that just, ooh, 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 I can't deal with that. I can't deal with that, man. Can you deal with that? I didn't think so. Maybe you said you can deal with that. And if you can't deal with that, more power to you. I don't have that kind of strength in my heart or my mind to put up with that. It's just dumb. And Fargo's not even a particularly big town. I think there's like maybe 70,000 people. I think the Fargo Moorhead area altogether is like roughly around 100,000. Which it's big. Don't get me wrong, it's big. But I know like to some of you out there, especially those of you in like big cities, that's like it's itty bitty. Like to me, small town. Like I live in a town right now of about 15 to 16,000 people. To me, this is like a bigger town. This is a bigger town. They got a Walmart, they got a Home Depot, they got a Fleet Farm. It's a Midwest thing, so if you haven't heard of it, don't worry about it. They've got a Chinese restaurant. Yeah, to be fair, there's a lot of towns around the Midwest that have Chinese restaurants. I don't know that that's particular, but there are several franchise fast food restaurants around here. That is small town, or excuse, that is like big size town for us. Fargo being it's a big town, but it's not like a big town. You know what I mean?
It's weird. It's like so in between when it just needs to pick a lane.
Oh, because
I,
like what the FM area altogether is like maybe 100,000 people.
no, it should be almost 300,000 people because Fargo, I think, is 100,000. West Fargo is 100,000, and Moorhead is 68,000.
Oh, really? I didn't know they differentiated them like that. I always knew Fargo was like a just like about like a 70 to 80,000 flat, and then Moorhead was like a somewhere in the same area, maybe about like 50,000.
Moorhead's 68, and Fargo is 100,000, and I'm sure West Fargo is probably about 100,000. But I was gonna add to that, like going to Red Hawks games. I was going with Debbie, Violet, and some buddies. Same thing, cash only. So I didn't have cash. I pulled up and I'm like, where are they? They were behind me. So I
Yeah,
had to wait for them to get cash.
and I'm not even particularly opposed to like the cash system when you're parking, but it's one of those things that like you need to say something in the ticket sales like bring cash for parking at the Fargo Dome or like just include it in the ticket price because
Yeah.
I hate getting jumped by your stupid extra feet. Like you're nickel and diming me for everything you can get. I'm already going to the show. I was willing to maybe buy myself and my significant other a souvenir while we were there. But after you nickel and dime me just to park, screw you. I'm not giving you a
Mhm.
dime more now. Like just trying to get like a Coors Light, one of those like aluminum twist off caps, the 16 ounces, $9. $9.
Sounds
That's
about right.
insane. Like you could get a 15 pack for just a little less than double that. A 15 pack of those aluminum pints is like 15.99. And you want to charge $9 for one.
Target Field is
No.
super bad with that as well.
You can stick something where the sun don't shine. Ooh.
But besides for parking, what else happened?
Besides parking, besides all of that, I didn't mean to go off down this whole tangent about monster trucks. without getting too much into the technical mumbo jumbo, where the exhaust comes out of the engine and the two pipes meet up with one and meet up with the tailpipe, right there at that junction, there's supposed to be a gasket. Gasket went bad. It was just just exhaust everywhere. So every time we came to a stop at a stop sign, it would drift up and get into the vents because we had the heaters on, and the whole car would just reek. So we bring it into his shop that following Monday, and they call. I'm on the road for work, and she brings it in. I wasn't able to attend with her, otherwise I definitely would have. And they call and they say, "Hey, we found what the problem is. Like the bolts are really rusted in there. The ends of them are pretty rounded off, so we're just gonna chop off a whole section of your tailpipe and just weld in a brand new shebang." And I'm like, all right, that sounds good. How much is that gonna be? It's about $300. Okay, more than I was thinking it was gonna be, but also at the same time, if you're chopping off a section of my tailpipe and welding in a whole new piece, okay, that kind of makes sense, you know? As I get it. Like I got a whole new catalytic converter out of the deal. No, I didn't sell the old one for money. Shut up. Uh, I got a whole new catalytic converter out of the deal, and it's a nice shiny new tailpipe section under there. So all right, whatever. And then while they're under there, they also tell me they're like, we also noticed that your valve cover gaskets are leaking oil. And if anyone is unsure what that is, basically on the top of your engine where all your spark plugs go in, that little cover plate that goes around and sits over your spark plugs, that is your valve cover. Those were all your little valves and moving parts and your lifters and stuff in the engine when the engine's firing. That's where all that happens. Well, the rear bank of cylinders, that gasket is leaking and it's spitting oil out onto the exhaust manifold. And because the exhaust is hot, it burns off the oil. And that's part of the smell that we're smelling. And I'm like, okay, how much is it going to be to fix that? And they're like, yeah, we could probably do that for about $700. So it'll be $1,000 total for the exhaust and the valve cover gaskets. And I was like, oh, $700. And I was real polite about it. I was like, I don't have that in the budget right now. You can go ahead and fix the exhaust, and I'll see what I can do about those gaskets. So we finish up the phone call, I hang up, and then as I'm driving back from work, I'm looking up on YouTube valve cover gasket tear down, on a Lincoln MKX and all this, and I'm watching this 24-minute video. And as I'm watching this, I'm like, all I have to do is move the airbox out of the way, move the throttle body out of the way, and then move the intake out of the way on the top of the engine, and then just move all the hoses and wires, and bingo, it's right there. I can unratchet them. I don't even like you don't need to take the engine out of the car. You don't need to move anything too crazy out of the way. Like it's pretty simple to access. And so then I look up online an aftermarket gasket kit with gaskets for both the front and rear bank of cylinders, plus all the coil packs, plus all the bolt gaskets is like $20. I'm like, you want $700 for this? No, not happening, my man. So we get there and I see the car and they show me like, oh, this is where everything's going on. I'm like, oh, thanks, guys. Like, yeah, I called my dad and he said he can make some shop space. And I think him and I are gonna try and tackle the gaskets. And he's like, okay, yeah, well, just let us know. We'll be happy to help you with that if we need it. And I was just like, no, not happening. I'm not paying seven. I'll spend a weekend of my time and save $700 rather than pay. And granted, I know there's going to be some people out there like, oh, you're paying for the expertise and the time and all this, but this is my piece of advice from my soul to all of you guys out there. Many of you might be surprised to find out. I'm not going to say that working on your car is easy, but you might be surprised to find that some things to do are not as difficult as you might imagine. And I'm not saying try and tackle everything that's wrong in your car on your own, but like if a shop tells you something's wrong with your car and they want to, oh yeah, you just pay us, we'll fix it right now. You just tell them something like, oh, it's not in the budget, and then just go on YouTube, look up a couple of videos, see what actually goes into fixing that part, and determine for yourself if what they're trying to charge you is worth it. Now, I'm not saying that this shop was trying to rip me off because they did an excellent job on the exhaust, and I'm very happy with it. But I'm just saying $700 to move an airbox and an intake and some wires out of the way and unbolt those covers to put a little piece of rubber around there. I can do that. I got the tools. I've been around engines a little bit in my life. I'll save the $700 and just do that myself. You know what I mean?
That's what I did this past summer, because I usually go to Jiffy Lube for oil changes, which now I've been doing them myself. But they're like, hey, your rear brakes are uh, going bad, and we could replace them for like, I think they were saying like $400. And I'm like,
It's real.
they told me that like for a couple oil changes. I'm like, okay. My roommate at the time was good with cars. I've made a lot of friends at work who are really good with cars, so I talked to one of them. I'm like, hey, how easy is it to replace brakes? He's like, extremely easy. Bring your car over and I'll teach you. And like I did all of it myself, but like with guidance, it probably took me a half hour just because the first one, just getting it correct.
Yeah, you're going through it. And yeah.
After like buying the brake pads, it was like a $40 fix.
Hmm.
$40, get to BS with people I know, spend 30, I mean, with drive time to his place, because his place is a little out there, is like an hour's worth of time. It's like, yeah,
Yeah.
I'll take that.
Yeah. And it's like, and you get in there and like, and like I'm not saying brakes are the easiest thing in the world, but like once you go through the process and you know like how it actually works, you're kind of like, wow, that is shockingly more simple than I thought how it worked. And then you start to think and you're like, and they wanted $400 for that? And like, don't get me wrong. I know that like it's the man hours and the labor and the mechanics experience. I know there's going to be a lot of people out there who advocate for that. And I'm not saying that they're wrong in any way for the experience that they've gained over the years and that the shop still has to make money. But here's the thing, right? Because where a lot of these times people are like, oh, these shops, they're always trying to rip you off and they're upcharging you. There are some shops that are bad, not all of them are. But here's the problem, right? Is that in order to generate a profit and in order to cover their own self for liabilities, right? They order parts that are of like original engineering manufacturing specs for your vehicle or an equivalent. And a lot of times you can find aftermarket parts online for like way cheaper. Like if you ever, Joe, if you ever go into like an O'Reilly's or Napa Auto Parts or even just the Auto Value and just one day for funsies, look up any random part. You're like, oh, I need a new serpentine belt for my car. They'll look one up and they'll be like, "Oh yeah, we can find one here. We got a couple in stock. This one here, lower end quality is $47. This one here, higher end quality is about $69." And then you go online, you type in serpentine belt for my car, you look it up, and it's like, "Oh, here's one that's being shipped out of California for like $18.37," and it does the exact same thing. You know? And so that's where all these costs start to add up is because these shops are obviously buying the at the market price parts, plus you're paying for all the labor, plus you're paying for this, and then it starts to add up. And then in reality, it's like, oh yeah, you can just go online and buy yourself some aftermarket and learn how to put it together yourself and save a couple $100. So, and plus I think it's a good skill to have to just you don't have to know how to tear down an entire engine and rebuild it from scratch, but it's good to know your vehicles. It's good to know or at least have in your mind like how much effort actually goes into fixing something. So that way if you guys ever bring your vehicle to a shop and they try and tell you it's going to cost $600 to fill your tires with winter air, you can go, hmm, something doesn't sound quite right about that. And so we've had all that going on, and then in the past week, along with that, like I said, the we got a huge snowstorm came through, And well, I shouldn't say huge, like 3 to 4 inches, but it all came over the course of like one night, so it felt like a lot. And then now the parts are just arriving for her car. So this weekend, that's what I'm gonna go do is go work on her car and do all that. So it's just been like the chaos of everything was like just such bad timing. I was like, Joe's moving here. I thought it was gonna be an easy 2 weeks. Instead, I've got to think about all of this. I just spent all this money on monster truck tickets, and then we had to fix her car, and now it's like, you know, not complaining. I'm just like, oh god, this was not what I was expecting on my February bingo card. Like, not at all where I thought this was gonna go. Ugh,
In
such is
term
life.
in terms of channel, we should be kind of back to the regular swing. Ian and I have to get caught up on recording, so I'm hoping we can do that a little bit this weekend because don't have any more reserves, which we usually like to stockpile some for times like these. And I'm hoping this weekend to go back to doing regular shorts. Be patient on that front. I should be good to work on them this weekend, but still trying to get the house in order and settle in. But yeah, within the next couple weeks, we should be back to normal for the most part.
Yeah. So I know this is a little bit longer one for you guys. I'm not even sure what we're at because I don't have my timer going.
Well, because I got interrupted like 3 times, we're at 53 minutes, so it'll be chopped down a little.
It's a little one, little cuts here and there. So I know this is a little bit of a longer one for you guys. We went off on a couple of different tangents, but you
Parking.
can kind of see, yeah, parking, yeah, parking. Feel my blood pressure spiking, Joe. Why would you do that to me? Um, but I hope this is showing a little bit of like what's just been going on over the course of time. So hopefully we can get back to being a little bit more regular for you guys. Yeah, like just everything that Joe said. Now we're getting ourselves back into that rhythm, into moving forward. But luckily, after this dealing with the car, I shouldn't have, fingers crossed, knock on wood, shouldn't have anything else that is immediately pressing that I need to work on. So
I also want to say, like, last, I would say, 5 episodes that we've done, Ian has come up with the topics, which has been super helpful for me because, like, we would spitball. I'm like, dude, I got nothing. Like, I'm so overwhelmed right now. It's like, just give me a topic, we'll do it. So, really appreciate you carrying the weight of the topics for a bit. So, I'm hoping to get back into some ideas as well. Well, which this weekend we'll kind of come up with a game plan and I can actually sit down and plan stuff out for the podcast and go from there.
very nice, very nice, very nice. All right, all right, all right. Maybe for one of them, I can talk a little bit about my Fallout D&D campaign that I'm brewing up.
That might be on the docket. Ian and I will discuss that and figure out a plan. But thank you for BSing with us. Sorry about the length of this one. I thought it was going to be like 30 minutes and it's going to be 50. So,
That's right. You're getting 2 for 1 in this one. This is our we're back. This is our 2 for the price of 1 video. You got a BOGO. They got a BOGO deal.
then in the next couple of weeks, we'll tell you kind of what the plan is moving forward. But other than that, thank you for BSing with us. Subscribe to become a bud today. And we will see you next time when we get back to normal.
And hopefully, until then, we can just take her easy. And you should too.